What up, everybody? It's Fantasy Football Guy back here with the first video of the year. So, my first video is going to be a running back rankings video on PPR. So, running back number one is, in my opinion, David Johnson. So, David Johnson and Le'Veon Bell are pretty equal. Le'Veon Bell is definitely more efficient and honestly might even out-touch David Johnson. But David Johnson should probably hit 300 to 350 touches. And he said he wanted to come out and hit 30 touches a game. So for me, David Johnson is the safer bet, even though he got injured at the end of the year last year. It was not too significant. So David Johnson is the number one running back in PPR. And he's my projection, 1375 rushing yards, 14 rushing touchdowns, 1100 receiving yards, and 7 touchdowns. Running back number two, Le'Veon Bell. So just like I said, there's a 1A and 1B in fantasy this year. It's David Johnson or Le'Veon. You can't really go wrong with either one of them. But Le'Veon Bell, to me, has... For example, he was suspended a couple times, and he's been more injury prone than David Johnson. So that's why I would take David Johnson over Le'Veon, but Le'Veon is pretty much the 1B in this situation this season. And for me, he is going to get in the same amount of touches as well, probably about 320 to 330 touches. And he's projected for Le'Veon, 1,300 rushing yards, 11 rushing touchdowns, 935 receiving yards, and 5 receiving touchdowns. So running back number three, so this is where I have deviation from most other people's rankings. I have Devonta Freeman at third. I think that Tevin Coleman last year excuse me, was very lucky in the amount of touchdowns he scored considering the amount of touches he had. So if you take off a lot of those Tevin Coleman touchdowns, I don't think Devonta Freeman will have an insane amount of touchdowns, but I think he'll get more touches due to longer drives and Tevin Coleman not any of the drives earlier due to touchdowns. So there's my projection for Devonta Freeman, 1,200 rushing yards, 500 receiving yards, and 15 total touchdowns. Number 4, LeSean McCoy. So LeSean McCoy on most people's list is a consensus number 3 overall. I put LeSean McCoy behind because of the fact that I think he is injury prone, and also the Buffalo Bills might even trade him. So if he does go somewhere else, who knows what the system's going to be like. I mean, LeSean McCoy is an insane running back nonetheless, don't get me wrong. But a different system, who knows, takes time to adjust. 3-4 down games where he only hits up like 8 or 10 points. That's not really what you want to see from your number one running back. So my projection is 1165 rushing yards, 8 rushing touchdowns, 450 receiving yards, and 2 receiving touchdowns. So running back number 5, Melvin Gordon. So Melvin Gordon had 900 and I believe 83 yards or something like that at the end of last season, along with 10 touchdowns, and he only played 12 games, I believe. So if he played the other 4 games, he would have probably hit up 1,300 yards and like 16 touchdowns, and might have even surpassed Le'Veon as a number 3 overall running back, if not even Zeke as number 2. So Melvin Gordon should have a pretty solid season with 1,200 rushing yards, 12 rushing touchdowns, 300 receiving yards, and 2 receiving touchdowns in that high-powered San Diego offense. So next, number 6, Jay Ajayi. So Jay Ajayi is a pretty solid running back. He came on after struggling a bit and being unhappy with his role earlier in the year. He was benched due to Arian Foster being the starter for a couple games, but came on strong after that. I think he'll be the focal point of the offense with Jay Cutler as quarterback, and Jay Cutler also, he either goes big or checks down, so Jay Ajayi could get more catches. My ranking of his and my projection doesn't really reflect an increased receiving role, but I think he can hit up 1,250 rushing yards, 6 rushing touchdowns, 300 receiving yards, and 3 receiving touchdowns. I gave him a low amount of rushing touchdowns due to Jay Cutler and not Tannehill being there. So next is DeMarco Murray. So DeMarco Murray for me is a drop-off candidate. Even at 7, that feels a little high for me. Derrick Henry was playing very well in the preseason for the most part, got a lot of touchdowns, and even though DeMarco will definitely still be a bell cow and a workhorse, he might not rush as often, receive as often on third down, but also, considering how big Henry is and DeMarco aging, I think that it will be Derrick Henry who has a lot of touchdowns. So Isaiah Crowell is my number 8 overall running back. So for Isaiah Crowell, I think with the new O-line and his new role, he will be a monster. I think that Duke Johnson will probably obviously become a receiving threat, as he has been. But Isaiah Crowell could easily run through that line, considering how good he was last year with a pretty crappy line. Even with Kaiser at starting as quarterback, I think he'll do good. I think he'll have 1,250 rushing yards, 8 rushing touchdowns, but only 200 receiving yards and 1 receiving touchdown. So number 9, Jordan Howard. Jordan Howard was the only rookie who even came close, and in some people's opinion, on a per-touch basis, and considering the situation, was better than Ezekiel Elliott. So Jordan Howard, I think, is similar to a Todd Gurley candidate this year that Todd Gurley experience last year. I think he's a regression candidate, but at the same time, he's pretty much the only offense the team has with Meredith going down the ACL tear, and Mitchell Trubisky possibly being the starting quarterback. I think he'll hit up 1150 rushing yards, 7 rushing touchdowns, 225 receiving, and 1 receiving touchdown. So last but not least, Ezekiel Elliott. So everyone knows what happened with Ezekiel Elliott. He was accused of domestic abuse, and he's been suspended for 6 games. And of this recording, it is August 30th. So the second day of his appeal is occurring right now. So the result of that is still pending. But Ezekiel Elliott still is an amazing and immense talent. Considering that old line, there's no way he won't be a top 3, top 4 running back when he's back. Problem is the amount of games missed. In total, I think in 10 games, he'll hit up 950 rushing yards, 10 rushing touchdowns, 300 receiving yards, and 2 receiving touchdowns. So this is my first video. Like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks, guys. And peace.